What women need to know about men or the world that we live in. I'm Alex Ansary, here to provide a spiritual take on the true nature of man and woman to a certain degree. I don't have all the answers, but I certainly have some unique perspectives that are very different than the norm, than the mainstream, especially when it comes to men and women. And I've been reaching out to the MGTOW community, men going their own way, and offering a deeper perspective as to why it seems that we're being turned against each other. I don't blame women. I don't blame men. I think that there is an issue with consciousness, and when you have a majority of the population acting in an out-of-conscious manner, almost as if it's been designed that way deliberately, you're going to have certain men and women act in a certain way, the majority. And so it's healthy to talk about these things, and we should be adults about this, about where relationships are today. I notice people get really pissy when you discuss the programming because a lot of people like to get defensive, and I would encourage you to lower your guard and take a listen to the overall message, and you're going to find it's a little different than some of the other messages where you're just simply seeing people play the blame game, and that gets no one anywhere. So, what do women need to know about the world of men? Well, first of all, we live in a day and age where there's a lot of young men today that are being exposed to really negative information about themselves, as well as negative information about women. And this harms children at an early age when it's being drummed into them through media or even their own parents or their siblings that this is how things are, that this is how people are. Actually, an old girlfriend of mine, she was talking about when she was really young and she would see the pro wrestling on TV that made her afraid of men. She thought maybe old men were like that. Yeah, some men are like that, and some men are not. What women need to know about men is that many of us are nothing like the stereotype that you've been given. And in a world where most of the population seems to be under mind control, and I would recommend that women educate themselves about the big picture, about this prison planet. It'll really help in the healing and evolution process once you wake up to who you are, and that you're more than a man or a woman. And there are attempts to get us to fight amongst each other and live out the rest of our lives in misery and pain. I don't want to let that happen, at least not without a fight. And the pen of the spoken word is truly mightier than the sword, mightier than any of their attempts to censor anything that we're doing. It's detrimental for men to be told bullshit about who they are, and it's detrimental for women to be viewing men in such a negative light, regardless of what you're seeing from the news and some of your own personal relationship experiences. Because when you're dealing with people that have been programmed by the system, you're dealing with programs. 9 out of 10 times that I've been assaulted, it's by black men. Not so much recently, but there was an incident a few weeks ago. I don't still blame black men. I understand the programming. And some of them see me as white, even though I'm mixed. So in some of the scenarios that I've had, I've dealt with programmed individuals from the society, and I've never looked at it as the fact, oh, they're black, so that's their actual nature. It's human nature to behave overall in a certain way. And I think there's a reason for that. Both men and women, and that would include all perceived races on the earth. So, men are being demonized as, being sexual predators and deviants, and it really seems one-sided. And, there's almost a lot of pressure to cover a lot of stuff in this video, so I would recommend subscribing, and I'm going to come back to more of these thoughts later, because I'm not going to go all night, but I would have to go all night to really give women a deep understanding of the world that men live in. But we are impressionable. And be careful what you wish for, and be careful what you create, what you project. And so some people have certain leanings towards law of attraction and certain things like that, but they're also quick to deem other people negative or assume certain things. And so some people say that they understand the concept of the law of attraction, but they don't really show that they're working it in all aspects of their lives, just in certain aspects of their lives. Oh, I want more money. Ooh, I want a car. But when people are projecting and seeing men in such a certain light, I believe it can actually draw that type of energy to you, or repeatedly those types of relationships. And as a man, have I continued to draw the wrong women to me? Historically, I can see a chain, a connected chain of a number of different individuals with certain issues. I've seen patterns, and so I don't doubt it in my own life that I've attracted certain types of people. And there's times where, for whatever reason, we're attracting other types of people. Without getting too deep into that, it's not healthy to be viewing men 24/7 as a predatory species that is separate than you. Because it took a man and a woman to create you, and it takes a woman and a man to create another man, or a male, or a boy. There's definitely a difference between a male and a man. But just to remind women about the world that men live in, they're under a system where so many of them are playing video games. So many men today are watching mainstream TV. Their natural instincts have been rewired, just like many women's instincts have been rewired. You know, so instead of foraging out in the wilderness, it's being done in the supermarket, being done with Federal Reserve notes, and instead of men actually going out and killing the meat, they're actually defending the village. We have a really sick system that's obviously in a state of decline for lots of different reasons. We have all these wars going on. We have a lot of unhealthy men and women on the planet. And in reference to those wars, many troops committing suicide. We're not in a healthy phase in our society. And it's infected, not just affected, it's infected many men and women. And if you pay attention to what's happening on TV, men are not being portrayed in a positive light. You know, and you see these Family Guy characters, and you look at professional wrestling, and you see all these villains being promoted, and they're beating women on TV. And you look at the UFC, which in a real way, being a martial artist myself, in no way am I an expert, but that's not martial arts. Women need to know that in the world that men live in, they're being led astray by the media, by the government, and a lot of women look towards the government for protection. And in the society and in this culture, women have been given a better life in many ways than women in other countries. But in some ways, governments are not there to promote true women's liberation or women's lib. And all of these things that are being said from these mainstream feminists, it's almost like it's there to provoke men and create more anger. And down the line, when men are demonized, and you can even say mind-controlled or programmed or brainwashed to see themselves in a negative image, that could backlash on women in society later on. You could see rapes increase, gangs of youth and men that have been cast aside by society kind of banding together around the fire. And when things get really bad, you might see aspects of society go out that are consumed with the spirit of revenge. And there's going to be a backlash. And so in a collapse situation, in a situation where there's no power grid, in a situation where there's an economic collapse, I talk more about this in other videos, so I won't get too elaborate, won't get too detailed. But you would see people trading women, again, as sex slaves in a more in-your-face way than the behind-the-scenes, behind-the-curtain way. But I'm already seeing more signs of this, by the way, in today's society. More reports of attempted abductions. America has a scary future. And it's a America that needs good men to not allow themselves to be entrapped by the spirit of evil. Now, some people have yet to even come to an awareness that we're heading somewhere that's very detrimental. Some people think that it's okay to put men down and cast them aside and judge them all as the same way, or engage in tribalism. I think that women view some of us as heartless or without emotion. And so there's this sense of revenge, and it's not healthy. When you feel like you've been under a system and you perceive it to be a male-dominated system, instead of an actual evil system that wants to control both men and women, that's the reality. But when we're under the illusion, and then people are attacking, psychically attacking, you can even say, or projecting negative energy, it creates this noise to where it's like a ping pong ball scenario, where people are bouncing back and forth, distrustful feelings and vibes, but at the same time, there still is sexual desire between us at the supermarket, in life, as we cross the street, as we pass each other, we're checking each other out. There's a part of us that wants to be with it, whether it's be out of lust or be out of love. Like, I really want to cuddle with that person or be cuddled by that person. But there's something going on in our society that almost wants to jump in and steer us away from that romantic moment and into just distrust and anger and blaming the other gender for all the world's problems. And it's a trap. I'm seeing it happen with both men and women. So women could benefit from this knowledge that, yes, some men are being hypnotized towards evil and are playing out these controlling, dominant archetypes. But there's reasons why. I talked about the revenge part, you know, the idea of some men getting back at women, and those aspects of the female population that have hurt men. But here's something else that women should know about the world of men. Why are some men dominant? Why are some men controlling? Why do some men play games? I'm going to give you some insight into this one. Insight maybe you've never heard from another man or another author or another vlogger who talks about relationships. Based on my own experience, I've seen women, at least in this town, prefer polygamy to monogamy. And the idea of multiple partners, the idea of non-attachment. I know we really went through this wave in the last decade. The idea of people being kind of more loose with each other. And I realize with a lot of women in today's society, it's threatening if a man really feels a strong way about a woman. I don't want to stir up all my old heartbreak, but there's a lot there. And so men can be conditioned by the society, by the women of today's society, to be less monogamous and less heartfelt. You know, a lot of us, when we're young men, we're a lot more willing to jump into marriage or a long-term relationship and to really love a woman. A lot of men change after they're hurt by a number of women, and they think that to protect themselves, that they have to start playing a game and do things, and that includes deceit, in order to get what they want, and that is the sexual connection. And sexual healing is totally a reality. And lust is a part of humanity. And a lot of people are motivated by the desire to have sex. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I have those feelings as well. What we ask ourselves is it moral to lie for sex? Is it moral to play a game? Is it moral to print out fake business cards and say you're a certain person? Is it moral to act like you have more money than you have in order to attract a female who might want to be with a wealthier man? And there are many ways that men are subjectified based on their appearance, their height, their skin tone in some communities where the mind control influence is wired to go in a certain way. Try not to get too deep with you ladies. There are certain influences that I've seen in the media and pop culture that are totally trying to steer women in the direction of certain men and away from certain men. And it's not always consistent. It's back and forth, back and forth. And as I shared in a previous video, trying to explain to some of the men that might identify themselves just to be white, that there's also an agenda out there to get white men pissed off at brown men and get them thinking that white girls are no longer interested in white men and that brown men or Muslims are getting them all. And I think that nothing could be further from the truth, actually. I live in Portland, and I mostly see white women with taller white men, and that's it. Or with feminized men. In general, I see women with dominators or men that they're dominating. And in my videos, I talk about this kind of crazy bipolar behavioral mechanism. And so, what do women need to know about men? For those of us men that are not going to allow ourselves to be dominators, to play out our own biology, to control the woman and tell her what to wear and what to do, for those of us that have overridden that code, if you will, to be very attached to a woman. And sometimes like for me, it was a major breakup or with someone I really loved. And because I'm in a culture, of course, in a day and age where it's the woman's choice, I've had to work for years to let that go. And then I've been hurt by a couple other people. So I'm at the place now where I've been hurt multiple times. It's a giant horror story. But instead of my heart just being this stump, just dripping blood everywhere, I'm in this process of trying to heal from it and not let it turn me into a monster. So even though I put a shield on, it's not a shield that just shields the heart from being active. The heart's still active. The heart still feels. I still speak from my heart. So men are really affected when they're rejected by women when they're not dominators, or when they choose to not allow themselves to be dominated by women, to be feminized, to just kind of do anything that the woman wants in order to get the you-know-what. And part of that also includes being super entertaining, or funny, or someone that is going to make it all about the girl, to give her attention. Not just necessarily money, but to give her attention, constant attention, flattery, or to constantly have the focus on her, even if it's in an argumentative way. I think that couples arguing, I think, is a sexual thing, just like couples wrestling on the bed. So a pretty heavy argument can lead to some pretty amazing sex. I'm going to be talking more about just this real nature to this Homo sapien species, the light and the dark, as time goes on. But women should work to understand how men really are, and that includes the larger system that they're in. And you can interpret that different ways, but you know, it's horrible what has been done to many men in recent years. They've been led to a war that has nothing to do with securing this nation's freedom, and it's led to a lot of people dead. A lot of people dead by the millions. Okay, so men are under attack too. That's not cool at all to have that stuff going on. And for those of you that can look outside the box of American, non-American, white man, non-white man, look at all these men that are being led into war to kill each other. This isn't good at all. This isn't good for the world of women. This isn't good for the world of men. Look at all the young men that have been conditioned to play mind control video games to let their minds be controlled, you know, to focus on killing and shooting. Where's the romance? Where's the male's equivalent of a romance novel? So there's danger in government getting too close to the women, and that being the surrogate boyfriend. When men are playing out their protective role, protecting you instead of the machine protecting you, instead of the cell phone protecting you, men can be steered towards evil and killing. That's what I'm trying to get to. The reason why you're seeing such outrageous, violent attacks on the planet and wars, and in some cases men acting out, though you see women acting out too and killing their children. It's all this in response to how far we've been thrust out of balance. Our families, our relationships, our cities. Humanity has been suffering for a long time. This is not our natural state. So men have been cast out of their natural state. They have no one to protect, many of them. And like I said, during certain times and in certain environments, through a variety of means, pop culture is just one of them. There are other means. There are means that are known and unknown. Women can be controlled, mind hijacked to fear certain men and go after certain men. So here's the thing. Men operate off of positive or negative reinforcement for their behavior when they're going for the you-know-what. You can actually feel sometimes uncomfortable just saying the P word or other words because it's vulgar. But when men are willing to do whatever it is to get that you-know-what, and they're being dishonest, their energy system is compromised. And evil can come to them through the form of a woman, or they could be tempted towards other things or their lower nature. It is the responsibility of men to rise above that. But when there is positive reinforcement for negative behavior, people that are in love with many of the Marines that have murdered innocent people, I'm sorry to say, a lot of you aren't ready for this. People that are, the girlfriends or wives of some of these cop killers, or killer cops rather, cops that beat people up and brutalize women. There's a lot of support for men like that. And I think there's something about this genetic tampering that's been taking place with the human species that is expressing itself in a certain way. Women going after men that ultimately are dominators, that ultimately are serving the system, that in many cases results in those men bringing money or trinkets or material things back to the hut, back to the house where the woman is. And there's a lot of materialism and I would say greed on both the part of today's man and woman, especially in Western culture. I think there's a lot of denial about that. This whole thing of white guilt is a real artificial construct. I see very little evidence of that. And I see quite a few fake expressions of that. And I don't want to get too political in this video, but there's a lot of men that have been duped into this war business. And that is so bad for family. That is so bad for society. And more of them have women in their lives in their corner, with a woman willing to put their head on their chest and you could say heal them. Heal them. Women healing bad men. There's a lot of compulsive female healers out there that are healing bad men that never will change because something is wired into them, I believe, that is sending them in those directions, and it's within our biology. There's no point in being offended about this at all, knowing that there's a potential larger story about our very design, how we work, what makes us tick, what turns us on, what turns us off, what kind of factors determine these things, environmental, internal, and do they change? Are they in a state of flux? All these things and more. The whole human physical body machine is a fantastic thing to study. Even if we're some sort of genetic experiment. But there's no doubt in my mind that we were wired in a certain way to create a very large population. Specifically, one could even say, to quote the Michael Tellinger book, slave species. That we actually have slave DNA encoded in us. Now, I've thought about this for years. And years and years and years. And it makes sense to me that if we have slave DNA, you're going to have dominant men and submissive women. And somehow or another, it's going to connect like a yin and yang. And I believe that's what you're seeing right now in society. You're seeing women, regardless of what they say and what they do, with the dominator. There's something sexual about it, about being submissive or being dominant. And there's I don't see very many peaceful, loving relationships today. Even relationships seem to be in a state of struggle, where there's one trying to get on top and one under. Again, what do women need to know about men? There are some men that have gone beyond this. And they are the most single people on the face of the earth because they are not attractive to the women that are alive today on the planet. They're very few and far between. So there's a massive shift taking place within society. And there's a lot of jumbled thoughts that I have on this topic, as well as a lot of traffic that's passing right next to my trailer, which I live in. I've pretty much, as a man, have been going his own way from a lot of things lately. And let me go ahead and wrap this up. The dating scene, being a slave. I think there's nothing sexy about being a slave. And I think that there is a new conscious man rising on the planet. And it involves men going in a more conscious manner, where they are not running around chasing the sexual experience. I feel like I've been going through this shift the last couple of days to months to years. Sometimes it seems like it's happening more certain times than others, and there's other times where I'm really longing for someone. But the last couple of years, I've really looked at women in a very different light. I feel like my intuition is a lot stronger than it used to be, and I feel a strong infection in the collective psyche of women today, and it's a hatred, it's an evil. And it's within those men today, too, that are willing to die in foreign lands and murder people for nothing. It's almost as if Earth is a hell realm, where certain people are stuck. And I want to get more into this, I don't want to get too political, I don't want to sound too metaphysical, but it's like we're in a fallen realm, where we're not really men or women, we're spirits. And we're like fractals of light that are like cast down to this world of duality, where all these things are going on, and all these dark forces are trying to divide us and tear apart our species. And we're at a pretty significant chapter of that reality at the moment that I'm speaking to you. So there's more conscious men that are waking up to the fact that we've been manipulated through our five senses and through lust, and they're stepping out of that, and some men are trying to step into the protective role. But even if there's no one around us that wants to be protected, we're speaking the truth, some of us, even though it could cause harm to us, especially for those of us that have Middle Eastern blood on at least one side of our family or more, like I do. You know, there's risk involved in being a man today, using YouTube to actually speak against some pretty controversial things. There's risk involved. But I think the world needs more of that type of a man that's willing to go his own way and do it even if the women aren't supporting it because of whatever frequency we're locked into. So women should know that some men are on a conscious path today, that are escaping the matrix, that are not being duped into war, that have never raped women, that have never molested women, but at the same time, for whatever reason, even though they're good guys, women aren't into them. They're too nice. Nice guys not only finish last. Wow. There's some pretty profound things I can say in response to that. Somebody actually posted some porn on Facebook, and she said, "I'm sorry, it was a virus, I got hacked." And it was a dog having sex with a woman, and I was just really disgusted, but thought of a joke. Do nice guys finish even before the dog? I don't know. Today's society is getting pretty weird. Sometimes people seem closer to their animals than human beings. But I will say that I hear over and over and over and over and over, and we all have from women, that they are really discontent with men today and how they're treated. And regardless of all of those statements, what we are actually witnessing in the actual men that women are picking is, it's startling. It's everything that they say they don't want. So women need to be reminded those men are out there. But unless they're really, 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 really maybe focused on making sure they achieve that goal and not being derailed by their own biological imperative to only be with a super buff guy who looks like he's on steroids, or, you know, to feel threatened by men that's only willing to be a man who's willing to bow down, who's really small and submissive, maybe shorter than her, I don't know. I think that women need to see outside that box of how much money a man has and actually look and see if he has profound value or not that might be able to be applied in another way. And another thing to add to even that, this video really can go on for a few hours. I don't think it should, though. A lot of men become businessmen once they become fathers. Or a lot of men clean up their act once they're in a partnership with a woman. And personally, I don't think there's anything more romantic than starting a business with a woman, especially when you're in your 30s or your 20s or at a certain age, where it's like, we're going to do this. We're going to be a team. We're not going to stab each other emotionally. We're not going to leave each other so easily over miscommunication. Doesn't mean that somebody can't leave, but people should try to commit to make it work. I don't think marriage is necessarily needed. I mean, we don't need the state involved, but like a commitment or a true, deeper relationship. And many of us long for that in our lives. Many men are longing for a monogamous relationship. Many men desire to have a woman to hold in their arms, to protect. You know, and there's two loving bodies that are holding each other. It's a powerful field of energy that, in fact, is healing. How many times have you been afraid to be close to someone? In some cases, we have an intuition that tells us to stay away from certain people. And in some cases, there's really a bug in the head that women think is an intuition that is, in fact, leading them away from goodness, that will, in fact, lead them into darkness or a dark man or a bad situation where something negative happens, like being hit or being cheated on. I don't want to get too deep in this video, but I have seen women take more notice of me when I'm with another girl or a woman at a coffee shop, whereas when I'm by myself, I'm totally invisible. So this whole thing about human nature's actual nature to be somewhat polygamous and constantly trying to spread the seed or spread the egg, it's very real. And so going back to this demonization of men because they have a sex drive, we were created in a certain way. And so were women. That's why you see women go for certain types of men if they show certain traits, because it's falsely believed to be a sign that they might be a good protector, or that that man might be tough enough to stand up to a gang of thugs if he's a man who will, I don't know, stand up to her or stand over her. I don't really think that women today are very good pickers of men that are actually better at protecting them. I think that there's just a lot of ways in which there's a lot of faulty perceptions going on, especially with regards to men. And that's something that I'm going to conclude with. You think you know men? You think you have men figured out? You think men don't have feelings? You think all men have gone to the dark side? You wonder where all the good men have gone? The thing is, if someone really wants to have a good man in their life, they have to hold that in their focus, because it seems to me that all the odds are in the woman's favor of that not happening because of the type of earth that we're on right now, this prison planet, this open-air prison. And it's not by accident so many people are having so much trouble. So, be aware. Things are not as they seem. And there's a lot of conscious men out there that are evolving. And if that's something that women are actually looking for, they need to actually move that into action. And if that includes overriding some biological code to stay in servitude, then do a meditation on that. Do a meditation on what it really means to have a DNA upgrade, to go beyond this inclination to be with a baboon, someone swinging a club over the woman's head, knocking her out, dragging her in the cave to have sex with her. There's still women that are with the baboon today in our so-called evolved world. Women today have to actually meditate on upgrading that DNA, I would say, in order to be in receivership of a good man. Hey, that's all for me. Subscribe to this channel for more.